On Father's Day, my daughter sent me a gift box meant to be a surprise. My wife peeked inside and whispered, "Do not open it." I asked why, and when I looked closer, shock froze me. 10 minutes later, the police were at the door. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. "Dad, I need the money now, not after you are gone," Cordelia shouted. Her coffee cup slipped, smashing on the hardwood, liquid soaking the rug. Her face flushed as her polished fingers trembled. I gripped the inheritance papers tighter, decades of planning now twisted against me. "Cordelia, I am not a bank. You will get it when it is time." Garrett smirked from the sofa. "Come on, Nate. She is your only daughter. What is a few thousand?" Last month it was gambling debts. The month before, shopping sprees. The demands only grew. "I have been bailing you out for 3 years," I said, rising slowly. "My retirement savings are at your personal account." Vivian entered, twisting a dish towel. "Please, calm down. We can talk." "Talk?" Cordelia snapped. "He is sitting on hundreds of thousands while we drown in debt." "Debt you created," I answered. The family photo on the mantel lay face down. Garrett leaned forward. "Old man, share the money now while you can watch us enjoy it." Old man, the insult burned. From him, a man who never kept a job, who lived off my daughter's cards. "I worked 44 years for that money," I said. "Long hours, missed dinners, no vacations. Also, you had a childhood, Cordelia, and so we could retire with dignity." "Dignity?" She laughed bitterly. "What dignity is there in hoarding while I suffer?" Her handbag, jewelry, and Garrett's sneakers told another story. "Your suffering is self-inflicted. Every emergency, every crisis, you made them." The silence was sharp. Vivian whispered my name, but Cordelia cut her off. "He is selfish, greedy, not a father." Garrett's face hardened. "You enjoy watching us struggle, thought that it makes you feel powerful." "Get out," I said. "Both of you." "This is my house too," Cordelia shouted. "You cannot throw out your own daughter. Watch me." But they stood their ground. I opened the front door wide, letting in the night air and neighbors' laughter. Families who cared about each other. "Cordelia, leave. Do not return until you can talk with respect and without asking for money." "You will regret this," she hissed. "When you are old and sick, remember this moment." Her heels slammed the floor as she stormed out. Garrett muttered, "Family does not abandon family." The door shook as it slammed shut. The silence after was heavier than their shouting. I stood frozen at the front door, my hands still wrapped around the brass handle. Through the patterned glass panels, I watched Cordelia's BMW jerk backward out of the driveway, tires squealing against the asphalt. Behind me, I heard Vivian's quiet footsteps. "Nathaniel." I turned slowly. The living room looked like the aftermath of a battle. Coffee stains spread across the Persian rug we had bought to celebrate our 20th anniversary. Inheritance papers were scattered across the hardwood like autumn leaves after a storm. The family photo had been knocked over, its silver frame catching the lamplight with a mocking glint. 44 years, I muttered, more to myself than to Vivian. "What?" she asked. 44 years I worked. Overtime shifts during her high school days so she could have new clothes, college textbooks, even that car for her 17th birthday. My voice caught. The wedding we could not afford, but we paid for anyway. Vivian bent down, carefully gathering the papers, her movements slow and deliberate. "She is struggling, Nathaniel," she said softly. "The gambling problem is her choice." The words left my mouth sharper than I meant. Every trip to the casino, every online bet, every lie about where the money went, her choices. I walked to the mantel and set the family photo upright again. From behind the glass, 5-year-old Cordelia beamed at me, her little arms wrapped around my neck as she sat on my shoulders at the county fair. When had that happy child turned into this manipulative adult demanding my life's savings? "Remember the Christmas she begged for that dollhouse?" I asked, touching the glass. "The one from the fancy toy store downtown? I worked double shifts for 6 weeks to buy it." Vivian said nothing. She didn't need to. We both remembered. We remembered the ballet lessons, the summer camps, the name-brand shoes she swore she needed because all her friends had them. Every sacrifice made gladly for our daughter's joy, and now she hurled coffee mugs because I would not hand over my retirement fund. "She didn't throw it at you, Nathaniel," Vivian said. "She threw it at the floor." The distinction meant nothing to me. Violence was violence. Disrespect was disrespect. I bent down and picked up one of the inheritance documents. The legal jargon blurred before my eyes, but I knew every clause by heart. Years of planning, careful investments, delaying gratification, all so Cordelia would have security after we were gone. Garrett's influence, Vivian murmured. He fills her head with these ideas about what we owe her. Garrett didn't create her greed, I said. He just gave it permission to breathe. The truth hung between us like smoke. Our daughter had become a stranger, and we had let it happen. All those years of giving in, writing checks, bailing her out of every storm. My phone buzzed. A text. No name, but I recognized the words instantly. Dad, I hope you're happy. The kids need winter coats and school supplies, but apparently your money is more important than your grandchildren. Don't expect to see them anytime soon. Grandchildren. The cruelest weapon in Cordelia's arsenal. Iris and Felix, 9 and 7. Innocent children caught in their mother's war for my wallet. She knew exactly where to hit. I showed Vivian the message. Her face crumpled. She wouldn't keep them from us, would she? But we both knew she would. She had done it before, a week here, 2 weeks there, whenever we refused her demands, using the children as pawns in her endless bargaining. Nathaniel, maybe we should reconsider. No. The word cracked like a gunshot. No more. I will not be held hostage over threats about the grandchildren, and I will not teach Iris and Felix that love can be bought. Vivian flinched at the finality in my tone. In 39 years of marriage, she had rarely heard me this cold. Even in our worst fights, I had never sounded like this. But something had broken inside me tonight. The illusion of sacrifice for love shattered as completely as that coffee cup. My phone buzzed again. 5 days later, I sat on the porch with the Sunday paper, trying to sink back into routine. Father's Day morning. But it felt different. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, but I held it anyway, watching the street. The Weatherbys were loading their car for a family trip. Across the way, the Nakamuras tended their garden, their laughter floating across the neighborhood. From the kitchen window, I heard the clatter of dishes as Vivian moved around inside. We had spent the week tiptoeing around the Cordelia-shaped silence. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits demanding money. Just silence. In 3 years of constant crises, Cordelia had never gone this long without contact. Usually, within a few days, she would resurface, first with apologies, then with smaller requests to test the waters before launching the next desperate plea. But this time was different. The silence inside the house felt wrong, too neat, too heavy. It reminded me of that eerie pause before a thunderstorm hits. Part of me wanted to enjoy the peace, but another part tightened with unease. Then I heard the rumble of a truck outside. I lowered the sports section and glanced out the window. A brown FedEx van eased to a stop in front of our house. Odd. We hadn't ordered anything, and Sunday deliveries cost extra unless someone really wanted something there on time. The driver hopped down, checked his device, and pulled a medium-sized box from the back. He walked up the driveway with the quick efficiency of someone working holiday overtime. "Nathaniel Whitmore?" he asked. "That's me," I said. "Happy Father's Day," he replied, handing me the package and his clipboard. "Somebody must think a lot of you paying for Sunday delivery." I signed, my eyes sliding over the shipping label. No sender. Just blank corporate details. The box felt too light for its size, about a shoebox, maybe 2 pounds at most. "Who's that from?" Vivian asked, wiping her hands on a towel in the doorway. "No idea," I said, carrying it inside. I set it down on the coffee table, the same table where inheritance documents had scattered less than a week ago. Vivian stepped closer, cautious. She had always been more wary of strange mail than me. Too many news stories about bombs and scams. "Maybe from the grandkids," she said, though without conviction. Iris had asked about Father's Day when we saw them last month. That was before Cordelia used them against us, before the threats. I forced the memory down. "Could be," I said, though the timing felt wrong. Too calculated. Iris wouldn't pay for special weekend shipping. Vivian bent to examine the package carefully, the same focus she gave to crossword puzzles or grocery receipts. Her fingers moved along the label. "Nathaniel," she said, her voice low. "Don't open it." "Why not? Look. The holes." I leaned closer. Small punctures, barely visible unless you looked for them. Too clean to be an accident. "Breathing holes," she whispered. My gut clenched. "Something's alive in there," Vivian said, stepping back. "The question is what? We both stared at the plain cardboard box as if it might move on its own. The morning sun poured in through the windows, but its warmth felt drained away. The quiet neighborhood seemed suddenly threatening. "Who would send us something alive?" Vivian asked. I didn't answer, but I already knew this wasn't a gift. The timing, the missing sender, the Sunday delivery, someone wanted us here, unsuspecting. Then it came. The faintest rustle inside the box. We both froze. It stopped, leaving the silence tighter than before. Vivian grabbed my arm, nails digging into the cotton of my shirt. "Did you hear that?" I nodded, unable to speak. Whatever was inside was alive, and it was waking up. A hiss slipped out, faint, but clear. We froze, staring as though the package might explode. The sound cut off. Silence, then again, longer this time. A hiss that turned my veins to ice. Vivian's grip tightened, her nails biting deeper. "Nathaniel," she whispered. "Call someone, now." Hands shaking, I pulled out my phone. My body dialed on autopilot while my brain scrambled to catch up. 911, what's your emergency?" "We have a suspicious package," I said, words rushing out. "It was delivered this morning, no return address, and it's alive. It's making noises." "Can you describe the noises?" I looked at Vivian. She nodded, urging me on. The hissing had stopped, but I knew it would come back. "Hissing," I said. My throat tightened. "Like a snake." The word almost stuck in my mouth. "Any damage to the box?" "No, just small holes, air holes. Someone made sure it could breathe." My voice cracked. "Officers are on their way. Stay back. Do not open it. Can you move to another room?" "We're about 7 feet away in the living room. Should we leave the house?" "Stay inside, but keep your distance. Officers will arrive within 10 minutes. Do not touch the package under any circumstances." The dispatcher's words echoed in my head as the line went quiet, filled only by the faint sound of typing. 10 minutes suddenly felt like forever when something dangerous sat on our coffee table, shifting more with every minute. "Who could have done this, Nathaniel?" Vivian asked after I hung up. It was the question I dreaded most. The answer felt obvious, but saying it would make it real. "I'm afraid to guess," I admitted, though my mind was already racing ahead, pulling together dots I didn't want to connect. The timing wasn't random. Father's Day. No return address. Whoever sent it knew our routines, knew we'd be home, knew exactly where to strike, angry enough to plan something this twisted. The box gave another noise, not just a hiss this time, but a restless shuffle, something inside shifting around. "The argument," Vivian whispered. 5 days ago, she was so angry when she left. She didn't say Cordelia's name. She didn't have to. We both thought it. We both knew. But this, I pointed at the box, this isn't anger. This is something worse. Revenge. The word hung between us, too bitter to speak, too obvious to deny. Our daughter, the same child we had raised, loved, and sacrificed for, had turned to something darker, sending us a package meant to terrify, maybe even hurt us. The rustling grew louder. Whatever was trapped in there was awake now, agitated, confused. Vivian's voice cracked. "What kind of person does this to their parents?" "Someone desperate," I said, though even I knew that word was too small. This took planning, patience, cruelty. Cordelia hadn't just lashed out. She'd designed this, step by step, as a calculated act of punishment. A car door slammed outside. Then another. Both of us jumped. Through the window, I saw a police cruiser pulling into our drive. 2 officers stepped out, walking quickly with the calm focus of men trained for danger. Relief washed over me so hard my knees almost buckled. Finally, help had come. Whatever nightmare lived inside that box would soon be their problem, not ours. The doorbell rang, sharp and steady. I opened the door before the second chime. Officer Dale Hendricks stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, his eyes alert. His nameplate read D. Hendricks. "Mr. Whitmore? I'm Officer Hendricks. We got your call about a suspicious package." "Yes," I said quickly. "Thank you for coming." I stepped aside. "It's in the living room." He wiped his boots on the mat before entering. Vivian appeared from the hall, apron still on, hands twisting nervously. "Officer, we're just grateful you're here. We didn't know what else to do." "You did the right thing," he said firmly. "Show me the package." We let him in. The box looked smaller now under his steady presence. Hendricks pulled on latex gloves, studying it carefully. "When did this arrive?" "About 35 minutes ago. Special Sunday delivery," I answered. "No return address," he noted, peering at the label. "And you heard sounds." "Hissing," Vivian whispered. Like a snake," Hendricks finished calmly. I've seen this before. Usually not venomous, but we follow protocol for all suspicious packages. He raised his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 19. Request animal control at 1385 Sycamore Lane. Possible snake shipment in residential package. The radio confirmed. 20 minutes. Hendricks turned back, shifting from procedure to questions. Any idea who might have sent this? The question hit like a weight. I felt Vivian's eyes on me. I don't know, I said carefully. Probably just kids pulling a prank. His gaze sharpened. Kids would need live animals, shipping supplies, your address, but that takes resources. He was right. This wasn't childish mischief. It was deliberate. Any recent conflicts? Family disagreements? The words cut. Vivian stiffened beside me. Nothing that would. I started, but the sentence trailed off. Hendricks studied me closely, sensing the hesitation. He didn't press. Instead, he pulled out a small notebook and clicked his pen. Any unusual charges on your credit cards lately? Pet stores? Exotic animal suppliers? The officer's question landed like a punch to the gut. Pet stores. The memory surged back with brutal clarity. That odd charge I'd spotted on last month's statement. Cordelia had my credit card for emergencies. Scales and Tails Emporium, $132.40. I had seen the charge but told myself it was something for the kids. School supplies, maybe a class pet. But not this. Never a snake. Mr. Whitmore, are you all right? Hendricks asked. I forced my face into neutrality even as my heart pounded. I'm fine. Just trying to process. But I wasn't fine. The pieces were falling together, sharper with every thought. The timing, the access to my card, the fact that it arrived on Father's Day of all days. My daughter had mailed me a snake. Will you be filing a formal report? Hendricks asked. We can trace the origin. Press charges if we confirm the sender. I glanced at Vivian. Her eyes carried the same conflict I felt. A part of me wanted justice, but a larger part, the father in me, the man who'd spent 30 years shielding Cordelia despite her flaws, couldn't hand her over to the police. No, I said quietly. If it's just a prank, pressing charges seems too much. Hendricks made a note, his expression suggesting he'd heard this excuse before. Family loyalty over justice, even when the family line had been crossed in dangerous ways. Another vehicle turned into the driveway. Through the window, I saw a white van with animal control services painted along the side. That'll be Ray Caldwell, Hendricks said. Best wildlife guy in the county. Caldwell moved with the steady precision of someone who had seen it all before. Within 20 minutes, he'd coaxed a 4-foot ball python from the box, confirmed it was non-venomous, and secured it in a carrier. Beautiful specimen, he said as he loaded it into his van. Somebody paid good money for this one. Ball pythons are excellent pets when treated right. Shame it was used for this. Hendricks shook our hands before leaving. Call if you recall anything about who sent it. Even pranks escalate if ignored. I nodded, pretending to cooperate while darker thoughts churned. Both vehicles rolled off down the street, leaving us alone with the aftermath. The living room felt changed, unsettled. Though the professionals had wiped down the table and stacked the documents, the space still felt violated. Those inheritance papers no longer looked like a plan for the future. They looked like evidence, proof of the betrayal that had brought us here. Vivian clattered dishes in the kitchen, scrubbing harder than necessary. Stress cleaning, her usual coping mechanism. I stood at the window, watching the Weatherbys return from their outing, their car full of picnic baskets and children's laughter. Normal families, normal fathers, not fathers who received snakes in the mail from their daughters. That credit card charge seared itself in my mind. Scales and Tails Emporium, $132.40. 3 weeks ago, just after the fight about the inheritance. Perfect timing for revenge. My phone weighed heavy in my hand as I scrolled to Cordelia's contact. Her smiling face beamed back at me. A photo from Iris's birthday last year. Before the demands, before the threats, before this morning. Are you really going to call her? Vivian asked from the doorway, her voice low. I need to know, I said. And if she admits it? Her question hung in the air like a test I wasn't ready to take. What does a father do when his daughter crosses a line this deep? I didn't know, but I knew I had to hear her voice. The phone rang twice before she answered. Dad? Cordelia's voice was bright, fake bright. The voice she used when she wanted something or when she had something to hide. How's your Father's Day going? My grip tightened on the phone. If she was innocent, it was a normal question. If guilty, it was cruelty wrapped in cheer. Interesting morning, actually. I kept my tone even, casual, though inside I felt anything but calm. Cordelia, I asked carefully, you wouldn't happen to know anything about a strange Father's Day delivery, would you? No, Dad. What happened? She shot back instantly. Too instantly. It was what I heard next that broke whatever hope I had left. In the background came Garrett's laugh, not a startled chuckle, but that smug, satisfied snicker of a man who thought he'd pulled off something clever. The sound hit me square in the chest. Any lingering doubt burned away in that careless laugh. My daughter had mailed me a snake, and her husband found it amusing. Just a mix-up with a package, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. Nothing worth worrying about. I should let you go. Are you sure you're okay? You sound strange. Strange? I just realized my only daughter had tried to terrify me with a live reptile, and she was worried I sounded odd. Everything's fine, Cordelia. Enjoy your Sunday. I ended the call before my control slipped and the truth poured out. The phone shook in my hands as betrayal settled over me like a heavy blanket. Vivian appeared beside me, her eyes reading my face with the precision that comes from 39 years together. You heard something. Garrett laughed, I said flatly. In the background, she asked what happened, and he laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Her hand rested on my arm, sounded like steady against the storm inside me. What are you going to do? I looked at the phone, then toward my office, the place where bank accounts, credit cards, ARDs, and all the tools I'd used to prop Cordelia up for 3 years were waiting. I'm going to teach my daughter about consequences. By 7 that evening, I was in my office. The door was closed, the computer hummed softly, and the house was quiet. I had spent the afternoon walking the neighborhood, thinking carefully, reviewing 30 years of financial decisions, every choice that had brought us to this crossroads. The anger I'd carried all day had cooled into something sharper, steadier. Not rage anymore, purpose. On my desk sat 30 years of proof that I'd mistaken handouts for love. Bank statements showing monthly transfers to cover Cordelia's rent. Credit card bills I'd paid without hesitation. Insurance premiums, car payments, emergency loans that had never once been repaid. Beside my keyboard lay the leather portfolio I'd flipped through too many times. Checks written for her wedding. The bill of sale for the car I'd unloaded just to pay off her gambling losses. Bank transfers labeled assistance that had turned into routine deposits. Every page told the same story. A daughter who'd been taught her father was an endless well of cash, not guidance. The glow of the monitor pulled me forward. I logged into the online banking portal, fingers typing in passwords Cordelia never had, but had still managed to work around over the years. First stop, the credit card account. The same card with the charge from Scales and Tails Emporium 3 weeks back. Cordelia still listed as an authorized user, a privilege I'd given her in college for emergencies. 20 years later, those emergencies had grown into a lifestyle. I clicked Manage Users. The screen asked security questions, my mother's maiden name, the street where I grew up. Answers that unlocked tools I should have used long ago. Remove authorized user, the screen asked. My cursor hovered, not out of doubt, but because of what it meant. 30 years of funding recklessness. 30 years of enabling. Enough. Confirm. User access revoked, effective within 1 business hour. Next came the PIN changes. Somehow she'd learned my numbers, probably from leaning over my shoulder during yet another rescue. I entered new digits, the year Vivian and I were married. A code that meant everything to me and nothing to Cordelia. Then the automatic transfers, the monthly deposit to her checking account, the recurring car insurance premium, even the gym membership she'd once convinced me was vital for her mental health. One by one, I canceled them. Each click left a digital trail, proof that I was finally stepping out of the role of her private bank, and my hands never shook. No second guessing. This wasn't cruelty. This was overdue accountability. I thought back to her phone call just a month ago, sobbing about debts from gambling, how she swore it was the last time, how I wired another $6,000 and told Vivian we were helping Cordelia learn responsibility. I wasn't teaching responsibility. I was teaching her that consequences didn't exist. The final screen listed the changes. Credit revoked, auto payments canceled, PIN updated, 30 years of enabling erased in half an hour of determined clicks. Save changes. Outside the window, suburban life rolled on untouched. The Weatherbys were grilling. Mrs. Ashworth walked her terrier past our mailbox. Normal families, normal fathers, not men dealing with snake deliveries from their own kids. The confirmation popped up instantly. Account changes processed. I leaned back in my leather chair and felt something unfamiliar. Control. Not frantic damage control, not another bailout, but the calm authority of finally saying no. By morning, Cordelia would hit a wall. Her card declined, her automatic bills bouncing, her guaranteed access cut off. For the first time in decades, she'd be standing in the ruins of her own choices. The phone stayed silent that night, but I knew it wouldn't for long. Morning came quietly. I sat at the kitchen table with coffee and the paper, sunlight catching on Vivian's herb pots. No dread, no anxious waiting for Cordelia's next crisis. Just peace. Vivian moved softly around the kitchen, topping off my cup. She hadn't asked what I did in the office, but her small, knowing smile told me she understood. At 8:15, the phone rang. Cordelia's name lit up the caller ID, right on schedule. I let it ring 3 times before answering, giving myself the luxury of calm. "Good morning, Cordelia." "Dad, what have you done?" "My card isn't working." Her voice pierced through the line, panicked and shrill. "I tried to buy groceries, and it was declined. My car insurance payment bounced. What is happening?" I took a slow sip of coffee before answering. "Cordelia, I know you sent me that Father's Day gift." Silence stretched across the line, long and heavy. Her voice shifted, panic hardening into fury. "You've lost your mind. How could you set me up like this?" "Set her up. Not what are you talking about? Not what gift?" The woman who mailed me a live snake now accused me of trickery. That told me everything I needed to know. "I didn't set you up," I said evenly. "I just stopped funding your recklessness. This is insane. You can't just cut me off without warning. I have bills. I have responsibilities." Responsibilities. The word echoed in my head, like the responsibility to respect your parents, to live within your means, to take care of your own family instead of using mine. Vivian had paused her kitchen routine, eyes fixed on me, searching my face for strain. But I felt calm, detached almost. "Dad, please, you don't understand," Cordelia pleaded. "Garrett and I are struggling. The rent's due, my car payment." "My car payment," I corrected silently. "Your rent that's been draining my account every month." I let the silence stretch before answering. "Maybe it's time you learn what responsibility really looks like." Her voice shot up an octave. "You want to play games? Fine. Don't expect to see your grandchildren again. Iris and Felix will forget you before long." "Cordelia." I cut her off, my tone quiet but final. "Those threats stopped working yesterday." The line went quiet except for her breathing, jagged and fast. I could almost hear her scrambling, reaching for another manipulation. "I can't believe you do this to me," she whispered, slipping into that pitiful voice that had opened my wallet more times than I could count. "I'm your daughter. I'm struggling. Instead of helping me, you're punishing me for something I didn't even do." Not even a hint of denial. Not once had she said, "What snake?" or "What package?" Just misdirection and self-pity. "Your struggle is yours," I said coldly. "Your choices created it. Your choices put that box on my table, and your choices will decide what happens now." "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "One little prank and you completely lose your mind." One little prank. There it was. Not a full confession, but close enough. She had sent me that snake and expected me to keep writing checks like nothing had happened. "A live snake is not a little prank," I said, "and a father cutting off a lifetime of handouts isn't losing his mind. It's finally using it." Her voice dropped, icy and hard. "This isn't over, old man. You think you can control me with money? We'll see." The line went dead. I set the phone down carefully. Vivian stood nearby, eyes wide but filled with something new. Admiration. The morning sun still poured through her herb garden. The coffee still tasted perfect. "She's coming here," Vivian said quietly. I nodded. "Probably with Garrett. They'll want to finish this face to face." "Are you ready?" I thought about it, really thought. Ready for my daughter and her jobless husband to storm into my home, demanding money, using my grandchildren like bargaining chips? "Yes," I said finally. "I'm ready." The roar of an engine cut through the calm. Tires squealed into the driveway. 2 car doors slammed. Vivian and I exchanged a look. We already knew. Heavy footsteps pounded up the walk. The bell rang sharp twice, followed by pounding fists when we didn't move fast enough. "Stay here." I told Vivian. No, she said firmly. We face this together. The knocking grew louder, demanding. I walked to the front door and opened it. Cordelia and Garrett stood on the porch like an army of two. Cordelia's face was flushed, her hair a mess, anger radiating off her in waves. Garrett hovered behind, taller, his expression dark with hostility I'd never seen aimed at me before. Dad, Cordelia hissed, voice shaking with rage. We need to talk. We already did, I said, standing in the doorway, not budging, not inviting them in. I thought I made myself clear. Clear? She barked out a laugh. You've lost it. You can't just cut me off because of some stupid misunderstanding about a package. Even now, standing on my doorstep demanding money, she couldn't admit the truth. There's no misunderstanding, I said. You sent me a snake, I said. I responded as I should. Garrett stepped forward. Look, old man, maybe you didn't think this through. Cordelia's got bills. The kids need things. Kids she threatens to use against us when the money stops, I answered calmly. Cordelia's face twisted. Fine. You'll never see Iris and Felix again. They'll grow up knowing their grandfather chose money over family. Once that threat would have crushed me. Now it sounded hollow. That's not a threat, Cordelia, I said. That's a blessing. Shock froze her. Garrett's jaw dropped. If you'd use your children as weapons, better they're spared that poison. Garrett stepped closer, voice low. We know where you live. We know your schedule. Rethink this. Vivian stiffened, but I stayed steady. Is that a threat? Family works both ways, he said. Cut us off. Don't expect us to go quietly. That's exactly what I expect, I replied. And if you don't, the police will. Cordelia tugged his arm, but it only stoked him. You think cutting money makes you powerful. There are other ways. Like working, I said. People do it all the time. This isn't over, Cordelia hissed. You'll regret this. Family doesn't abandon family. There already are consequences, I said. You're living them. They stared, finally seeing their control was gone. Cordelia spun toward the car. Garrett followed with one last glare. Their engine roared as they left. I closed the door, turned to Vivian, her face pale, her eyes proud. We'll need legal advice, I said. That evening we sat in the kitchen, our sanctuary for serious talks. Vivian with tea, me with coffee. I keep thinking of her at 8, Vivian whispered. That Mother's Day breakfast. She was so proud. I remembered pink pajamas, the stick figure drawings. Those memories felt like they belonged to another family. She's still our daughter, Vivian said. Vivian, I answered softly. She crossed a line. I have one more step. Her teacup froze midair. What step? Something permanent, to make sure this never happens again. You mean the will, she said. Among other things, I confirmed. Vivian sat in silence for a long time, wrestling with the weight of what I had just said. Changing our estate plan wasn't just about dollars and cents. It was an admission, carved into law, that our own daughter could no longer be trusted. Finally, she spoke. The grandchildren, Iris and Felix. At least they'll grow up not learning that love can be bought. I reached across the table and took her hand. Vivian, what she did today wasn't out of desperation. It was cold, calculated cruelty. The snake, the threats, the manipulation, that's who she has chosen to be. Cutting her out isn't about revenge. It's about protection. Protection for us, for our marriage, for our retirement. Her thumb brushed my knuckles, the same gesture that had calmed me through lesser storms. Only this wasn't small. This was the collapse of something we once believed unshakable. Will it stop her? She asked. If you lock everything down legally, will she finally leave us alone? It removes her leverage, I said. No money, no inheritance, no strings to pull. She'll have to find someone else to manipulate. Vivian's voice cracked. I hate that it's come to this. So do I admitted, but I won't spend the years we have left chained to her demands. I won't let her burn down everything we've built together. Outside, the neighborhood carried on like nothing had happened. Weatherbees walking their dog, Mrs. Ashworth watering her garden. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. When will you do it? Vivian asked. Tomorrow morning. I'll call Eleanor Thorne first thing. She's been handling our legal matters for 15 years. She'll know how to make it airtight. Vivian nodded slowly, grief etched into her face. And if Cordelia finds out? She will eventually, I said. But by then, it'll all be locked down. Her anger won't be able to touch us. I gathered our empty mugs and carried them to the sink. Behind me, Vivian sighed, not with protest, but with sorrow for the daughter we had lost. Tomorrow I would take the final step. Tonight I would simply hold my wife and let her mourn. Eleanor Thorne's law office occupied the fourth floor of a granite building downtown. Shelves of thick legal books lined the walls, silent witnesses to decades of family battles and protections. I sat across from her polished desk, a manila folder of documents at my side, feeling calmer than I had in months. "Nathaniel," she said, slipping off her glasses, "when you called this morning, you mentioned needing comprehensive protection. Tell me what's been happening." Eleanor knew us well. She had written our wills, overseen property transfers, even settled Vivian's mother's estate. To her, we had always been the steady couple. What I was about to share would sound like another family entirely. I laid it all out: the inheritance fights, the snake delivery, the frozen accounts, the threats on my doorstep. She listened without interruption, jotting notes, her expression tightening as the story unfolded. "Garrett said they know where we live?" I finished quietly. "They said they know our routines." It felt like a direct threat. Eleanor set down her pen. "Nathaniel, this isn't just family drama. This is harassment and intimidation. It has to be addressed on several levels." "That's what I hoped you'd say." She pulled out a yellow legal pad. "Let's begin with your will. You want to restructure the inheritance?" "Yes. I want every penny that would have gone to Cordelia redirected to Iris and Felix's education. Not a dime for casinos or shows or shopping sprees." Her voice softened. "That's wise. We can establish an educational trust managed by an independent trustee. Funds will be released only for verified school expenses. Your daughter and her husband will have no control, no access." "And Vivian?" I asked. "She remains fully protected. The house, your retirement funds, her security, untouched. This only alters Cordelia's portion." She opened another file. "Now the restraining order. We'll document every incident: the snake, the threats, Garrett's intimidation. Using a live animal shows premeditation and malice. Courts take that very seriously." "How long will it take?" "The will can be amended within the week. We can file for an emergency restraining order today, with a hearing scheduled within 72 hours. Once approved, any contact from Cordelia or Garrett becomes a police matter, not a family argument." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Months of tension seemed to loosen in my chest. The burden of always being on call for Cordelia's chaos, of tiptoeing around her tantrums, of paying the price for her bad choices, all of that was finally ending. "There's one more thing," Eleanor said. "You need to document everything: calls, texts, threats, even attempts to use the grandchildren. Keep a paper trail. It may come in handy if this escalates." "You think it will get worse before it gets better?" I asked. "People who thrive on manipulation rarely accept boundaries gracefully," she said. "Once she realizes she's out of your will and under a restraining order, her reaction may be volatile." But for the first time in years, I didn't feel fear. With the law on our side, her anger would be aimed at a system built to handle it, not at two tired parents just trying to enjoy their retirement. Her assistant came in with the paperwork. I signed each page, steady and sure, feeling the weight lift as the ink dried. 3 decades of enabling ended with a signature. From now on, our home was shielded by law. "The emergency order should be processed within 24 hours, Eleanor said. "Both Cordelia and Garrett will be served tomorrow morning. After that, any contact becomes criminal." I stood and shook her hand. "Thank you for everything." "You made the right choice, Nathaniel," she said firmly. "Your safety and Vivian's peace of mind come first." I walked out into the sunlight with the folder under my arm, calmer than I had been in years. The next 2 days passed quietly, the kind of quiet we hadn't known in decades. Vivian and I sank back into our ordinary rhythm. Coffee without dread, walks without checking for missed calls, dinners without talk of emergencies. On Wednesday, Eleanor phoned. "The documents were served at 2:15. Both Cordelia and Garrett have them in hand. It's done." I thanked her and sat still, absorbing the words. Outside, Mrs. Ashworth planted spring flowers, and the Weatherby kids pedaled by on bikes. Normal life. Vivian appeared in the doorway. "The papers? This afternoon?" I said. "It's finished." She joined me, sliding her hand into mine. We didn't need to discuss what Cordelia might do next. The law was ironclad, and for the first time in 30 years, we were free. I thought of the little girl who once made burnt toast and pulpy orange juice for Mother's Day. The child who drew stick figures of our family. That child had long since disappeared, replaced by a woman who mailed snakes and threatened grandchildren. The shift had been slow enough that I excused it for years. But the woman who stood on my porch demanding money wasn't my little girl. She was someone who thrived on intimidation, and love alone had never been enough to draw that boundary. She'd gotten what she wanted. I was out of her life. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, she had threatened to cut me off from Iris and Felix unless I paid. Now, by her own actions, she had cut herself off permanently, losing both access to her children's inheritance and any claim to mine. Iris and Felix's education was secured in a trust beyond her reach. College tuition, books, tutoring, all protected, with guardians she couldn't manipulate. Vivian squeezed my hand. Do you think she understands what she's lost? She will, I said. The restraining order means she can't contact us without breaking the law. The will means there's nothing left to fight over. She'll move on. And if she doesn't, it becomes the police department's problem, not ours. For 3 decades, I'd been her safety net, cushioning every fall. I sold my car to pay her gambling debts. I covered her rent. I signed checks I told myself were the last time. The snake was her last word to me, a box full of venom meant to terrify. Instead, it pushed me to where I should have gone years ago. Eleanor's office, legal protections, final boundaries. That evening, Vivian and I cooked dinner together. Sunlight streamed in through the kitchen window. The house was quiet, our conversation easy, no phone calls, no desperate texts, just peace. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.